Hey, welcome back to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. For those of you who have never tuned in before, Flavor and Fiction is a segment where I read a book from my 2023 reading challenge, and then I give you a short review and I make a recipe using an ingredient or food mentioned in the book. So you get your flavor and your fiction. So this time the category was a book written by someone who shares your first and last initials. So I chose someone who has been on my TBR forever, and I'm so glad I finally got to read one of her books. I chose Roxane Gay, and we're going to be reading the book Hunger today. And as far as the food, I chose something that Roxane Gay says that she makes very well herself, which is Haitian mac and cheese. Disclaimer, I am not Haitian. I've never made Haitian mac and cheese. There are a couple different recipes floating out there, so, don't kill me if I made the one that you don't make. It actually just came out the oven a couple of minutes ago, so I cannot wait to try this. But first, let's dig into the book. So Roxane Gay is a best-selling author, and you may know her other titles, Bad Feminist, An Untamed State, or Difficult Women. But I chose to start with her memoir, which is Hunger. And I chose to do it as an audiobook. I normally don't do audiobooks unless it's a memoir in the author's own voice, because then it kind of adds a little something. So that's what I did this time. And the only thing about doing that is that I was listening to it at work and in the car. And, a lot of it is some heavy emotional stuff. So just fair warning. Speaking of warnings, I do want to give a trigger warning. There is a lot of talk of essay in this book. And the only reason why I'm not using certain words, I don't want you to think I'm making light of situations, but I don't want to get, I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube or, censored or anything. So that's why I'm using words like incident and situation and assault instead of other things. If you're not in a place to hear about it, no problem. Just skip ahead to the mac and cheese. So Roxane was a relatively happy child being raised in a loving and, dare I say it, wealthy family. And when she was 12 years old, she had a boyfriend who she loved and who she thought loved her, until one day he led her to the woods, to an abandoned structure where some of his friends were waiting. And that's where the incident happened. And it changed her life, as I'm sure you can imagine. So it affected how she felt about herself in the moment, but also in the coming years, because she was upset with herself about how she handled things afterward, that she stayed in contact for a bit with the person who hurt her. So the anger and the sadness and the fear that the event caused was only compounded by the guilt and the shame that she felt because of her decisions following the incident. So not too long after that, her family moved to another state, and she thought she could maybe reinvent herself there. But of course, your trauma follows you wherever you go. So she began to find comfort in food, and she started putting on weight. And so gaining that weight, along with being, she eventually grew to be 6'3", it gave her a sense of security. And I think it was more like no one would harm her body if they didn't want her body. And then she also entered into less than desirable relationships with people who treated her terribly. And yet she clung to them as if she felt she deserved to be treated that way. And as far as I understand, that's not uncommon for people who have suffered SA. She went to college, she went to Yale, but she dropped out. She just ran away. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. Her family, who had been supportive and loving, especially her father, they found her and let her know she can come back home when she's ready. And even though her family was very supportive and loving, they also focused on her weight a lot. Even, when she was 12 and started putting on the weight, and mostly out of concern, but it still did something to her self-image to constantly be, addressed by her weight. So she had people in society who were starting to treat her a certain way because of her weight. And then she would go home and people in her family would start to treat her a certain way, not treat her badly, but they wanted to help. And in the name of helping, they're suggesting all these ways to lose weight. And they made it clear that how they relate to her had something to do with her weight. So this led to a bad relationship with self-image and food, and she eventually even developed an eating disorder. I think the main thing is that with everyone talking about her weight, it made her feel like her worth was connected to her body. But if her worth is connected to her body, then what does that mean about what happened to her at 12? So you see, like, it's all connected. And so the people who thought they were helping were not exactly helping. Her outlet became her writing. She often had people in her stories who suffered a similar event. And a teacher actually noticed, and she ended up seeing a therapist, but that didn't, exactly pan out the way she wanted to. But the point is that she was able to kind of work through some of her feelings about her self-image and trauma and society's fat phobia through her writing. It also helped her reveal events of that day to her family. I know that everything I've said are like really heavy topics, but you know what? Even though I found like my life was vastly different from hers, there were a lot of relatable parts of her. And I feel like to some extent, most women can relate to the battling of their own self-image and worth. And I feel like that's where you're going to connect with her. Even if you don't feel like you have much in common, you do. And I feel like she's very good at connecting those relatable parts for the reader. So in my opinion, this was 2 thumbs up. Just make sure you're in the right headspace to hear about stuff like this. But it was very well done, and I'm definitely going to be reading some of her other works. So now, switching gears abruptly, it's time to try this mac and cheese. Just a disclaimer, I doubled the recipe because I'm taking it into work to share. So I hope I got my calculations right. But here we go. So while your pasta is boiling, you want to start by shredding your Gouda cheese and shredding up your vegetables, unless you're like me and you decided to take the easy way out and buy them pre-cut. You're going to saute those in a pan with some butter. And then when those are soft, you're going to add a little garlic. Then you're going to drain your pasta, return to the pot, pour in the veggies. You're going to add your evaporated milk, followed by some mayo. Then you put in half of your cheese, add a little Parmesan, add a little more Parmesan, just eyeball it, and then add a little more Parmesan. Then you want to mix that up until it's all incorporated and the cheese begins to melt. And then you're going to pour that into a pre-buttered dish like this. And then you're going to add your cheese on top, the remaining cheese. Then you're just going to put that in the oven at 350 for about 25 minutes. And it will come out golden and delicious, looking just like this. I just put a little on the plate, so I'm just going to take a forkful. I made sure I got a pepper and an onion in here. So let's go. Here we go. Oh my God. I don't want to take this to work now. And it's cooled down because I'm sitting here talking to you while this is sitting on the plate. So it's cooled down and it's still delicious. Oh, this I should close out this video. I don't know if this is authentic, but it is delicious. I recommend this recipe. It was so simple, as you saw. Not too many ingredients, not too many steps. Roxane Gay, if you're out there, Haitian mac and cheese is delicious. Let me know if this matches your recipe. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. As usual, I will put the link to the book and the recipe in the description below. Happy reading and happy eating. See you next time.